But then the light is right on my face.
I'm just saying it because he's going Facebook live.
The what?
He's going live on Facebook.
I know, please don't repeat that.
You need to look good on camera.
Thanks.
You need to catch the light.
It's going to be a disaster. I never want to see this. Okay?
Yeah.
Alright, so first thing I wanted to say is thanks to Clark House for having shown a lot of interest in this. I've just started a project with Dave. It's a year project and I'm working basically on the relation between craft and contemporary art in India. So I've talked to quite a few artists and a lot of curators and things like that, and usually they don't show much interest in what I have done before, basically, or at least in the technique or things like that they may be interested in, but usually not as curious as I have experienced here. So thanks to all of you. You were from the first day itself already asking me lots of questions. I was very happy. So this is what I'll be talking about today. It's not what I'm doing now, although I try to keep myself updated on what they do, but this is what I did for like 4 or 5 years PhD. And it's a painting tradition that we can associate to folklore, basically, of Telangana. And what happened during those 4 or 5 years is that I tried to document how it has either continued or changed since the moment the government started the revival of this particular craft. I'll go through that and tell you some dates and when it happens. So this is what I'll present today as well, the continuity and the changes in the painting tradition. So I'll go through the images, and the good thing with images is that they speak for themselves and for what happens. So if I take you to the images and the commissions and etc., we'll learn a lot about what's going on. And the first one I put is Ramayana, a condensed version, which is a hit on the handicraft market, as you can imagine, and which has very little to do with what actually Cheriyal painting was initially. Okay, so just keep that in your mind. So in the 1980s, early 1980s, representative of the All India Handicraft Board came to a village called Cheriyal to start documenting. So you see it on the small cross, right? Yeah. To start documenting a painting tradition by a community of Nakashis, called Nakashis, Nakashi painters. That was not doing so well, so they initiated a process of institutionalization where they basically encouraged them to train other craftsmen and the craft tradition, and then they started doing different formats to put on the handicraft market and for sale, and also set up the award competitions. I'm sure you've heard about it, but all the crafts of India compete for the state and national awards. So all that took place at that time, and it had quite large repercussion on what happened in the format, but also the process of commissions. Lots of new patrons came out, and and it changed quite a bit. Now, because when they went and started their research, the only village where they were still practicing this painting style was Cheriyal. That's how they coined the tradition. They called it Cheriyal. In reality, before it was in many different villages in Telangana, and I suspect it was in Andhra Pradesh as well. I don't actually have proofs, but I've seen very similar painting more south. So that's already something that to keep in mind. It's called Cheriyal painting, but it's not only from Cheriyal originally, if you really want to try to go back in its origin. Now then in 2010, they acquired the GI tag. Do you know? Yeah, the geographical indication tag. So it's a patent.
Yes.
Initiative. By the Indian government that fixed basically a particular tradition, or it can be also for a fruit like Nagpur oranges. I think have got the GI tag, and it really fixes whatever product to the location. The idea is really to fix it to that location. So Cheriyal painters, the one located in Cheriyal, formed a cooperative and then applied for that tag and received it. So two little problems with that. The first one is that because after the government interfered, they started doing very well actually. They sold quite a lot on the market, and out of 6 painters, I think 4 live in, wait, I've written it. Yeah, 4 live in Hyderabad out of 6 masters. Okay, so they've shifted also. They are not in Cheriyal anymore. To stay there. So we actually, yeah, it's not really implemented. The GI tag is there, being given to Cheriyal, but in reality, it's not. They are not practicing from Cheriyal. And the second thing is that it's this particular tradition. I'll go back to it in a few minutes as well. Is associated to a performance tradition, and so before there were several painting centers where the performance centers were as well. So it was always associated. So the performers wouldn't go only to Cheriyal to get their paintings done if they are in the northern part of Telangana. They would go to a near center. So by coining it at Cheriyal and then putting the GI tag on Cheriyal, even if today it's only there, it erases the possibility of other centers in the past also, which is kind of problematic for. Now we remember it's documented, but maybe 2-3 generations no one will remember that it was also from somewhere else. Now, what do I want to show you? So what Cheriyal used to be, okay? So the tradition was attached to a performance tradition as well. Same region in the southern part of Telangana and some parts of Andhra Pradesh. Some itinerant storytellers go to these painters, commission paintings, and then go and perform to their patrons. Okay. I'm showing you here just one. I'll show you the bigger one actually. In full, it will be like this. They are like around between 10 to 15 meters in length, either horizontal or vertical. So this would be one full, and it's the oldest one that we have. They're very close to South Indian mural painting, if you have seen images in the slide. So the making of this kind of scroll follows a very strict and conventional system of patronage. So you've got the patron community. They are the local professional caste. Low, but not, there's one SC caste. Otherwise they're all OBCs. So the Padmasalis, the Uyghurs, the Chakali, I think the other Dobi in Telangana, and then the Todi workers, the Gaud, and then I don't have the full list in my head, but there are 9 basically. Okay. So these are the patrons, and then they have one performing community associated to them, and each performing community then will go to the painters to get their paintings done. Okay. The narratives that are depicted on the scrolls, they are the genealogies of those castes, and how they link their origin to a god at some point. So through several heroes or other sages. So it's partly mythological, partly historical, though the historical part is very minimal towards the end. But yeah, it's the idea is to, since they link their genealogies to the gods, it justifies their existence. Okay, so it is also a legitimization process. Now this is a scroll of the Padmasali. Do you know the story? Do you want to know? It takes a while to explain. So
Yes.
You want to know?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll try to remember. So, to Brahma was born, I think, Brigu. Okay? Then to Brigu was born Rukanda. And Rukanda went to the sun. Okay, like many want a son. So he prays to Shiva and asks for a son. Shiva says, okay, I'll give you a son, but you have to choose between 2 options. Either your son will be evil and live a long life, or he'll be a good person but die at the age of 16. So he chooses the second option, like I want a good son that will die at 16. And then 16 years old comes, and the Yama comes to take Markandeya, sorry, is the name of the son. I missed that bit. So Markandeya is the son. Yama comes to take Markandeya away, and of course Markandeya is not happy at all. So prays to Shiva more. Please, give me let my son live. And Shiva says, okay, I'll do that, but you have to do a fire sacrifice in exchange. Now there's a bit of there are several versions, of these stories. So, but basically the idea is from the fire, Bhavana Rishi, the sage, comes out, okay, and he's the weaver of the god.
Hmm.
So that's when really like the weaving starts connecting at that moment. So Bharati is now out, and he's asked to weave clothes for the gods. And I think he weaves something wrong to Bhairava. Okay,
Hmm.
so he's not happy at all. So he gives him some sort of a curse that all the clothes that you will weave will now worn out by 6 months.
Hmm.
They won't last. Okay. Unless you get me a tiger skin. I want to wear a tiger skin. So here we have Narishi going to get somehow a tiger skin. Another sage comes into the narrative, Narada, show the pronunciation, and tells him, you should go to the forest where Bhadravati lives. She'll get you a tiger skin there. He says, okay, I'll go to the forest. So he goes to the forest. Actually, we could have followed a bit. Okay, Bhadravati here, and the forest, and the flowers, some trees. So he goes to the forest, meet Bhadravati, and she says, okay, I'll give you a tiger skin only if you marry me. Alright? So another he says, okay, fine, so let me go and meet Shiva with the tiger skin, and then we'll see what we can do. So he goes, and on his way meets, of course, lots of demons, lots of Rakshas. And he can't fight them. All. And at that point in the narrative, it's very interesting, some figures, I don't remember the names, I think 3-4 characters, that are from the communities of the performers, the Kunapuli, they are called, that community. So these guys come into the narrative because he can't kill, Ramnarishi can't kill the Rakshas on his own, so they will help him. Which somehow links them forever. They have those interdependent castes where one owns the livelihood to the other. Okay, so from that moment they stick together. Until now, actually, these castes are like the Kunapulis only will perform for the Padmasalis, and Padmasalis do not commission to anyone else than the Kunapulis. So when all this happened, they kill the Rakshas, and eventually it all falls into place. He goes back to the forest, marries Bhadravati, of course, and then it ends in there. There's always a last register in all of the scrolls where they present themselves to the local chieftain or king, and they present themselves with a document. I'm not sure it's very visible. I think
the end.
Yeah, the last register. So the fourth guy from the left, I think he's presenting something, which is some sort of a certificate. Sometimes it's the scroll itself. So there's one of them where they're coming with the scroll on their back with the wooden stick. To get basically the validation from the authority that this community exists and they exist together. Okay. So that's for the story. Again, so what they do is that they put they have a sample amount of register that they always put, but in the performance, I don't understand Telugu, so I couldn't understand them. But that have been told by people who actually document the performance, and they say that it's not related. It's hardly related. So they use it as some sort of a memoir, like to remember where they are in the narrative. But then they improvise a lot, and they contemporize also. So they will take some stories that happened recently in the village and then put it into the narrative. But this is the broad line. So we've got and how they connect themselves to the gods. So the performance takes place. Oh, that was just a detail of Narishi with his tiger. The performance takes place in the center of the village. So there will be this one is only one guy, but sometimes there are two, and one will sing, one will narrate, or vice versa. Then you have the musicians. It depends. It can be more or less big. And people come and attend. It can last for a while, 4 or 5 nights. They are very long. Yeah.
Like one scroll is taking 4 or 5.
Yeah, 4 or 5 nights. Yes. But they do it only in the night, so once everyone is actually a bit free. And they do. It's not only just a narrative. It's also a temple. So a lot of the figures, the gods, when they appear, they're always not in profile view. They're always in front views, and they do a lot of worship. And that takes actually ages. They can spend one full night just doing that particular one worship at that time. So so yeah, there's a lot of religious activities happening as well. So it's a support to their performance, and it does not illustrate it literally. I wanted to show you a video.
It is beautiful.
Wait, just need to. The video is on another. I'm not showing you the whole thing. So this was documented by the Telugu University. They have a campus in Warangal. They've done amazing work, though no one knows about it because it's all in Telugu. And if it's not in English, yeah, it's quite difficult, of course. But they've documented pretty much all the performing tradition of the region. And that was through a project on performance, not at all on visual arts. Okay, so it's.
ఈ ఆటలను ఎప్పుడు నేర్చుకోవాలి ఈ ఆటలు ఇచ్చేదిరా అనేసరికి భూమి నీరుకోమంటే పాపం కోరిక వెళ్ళి ఆ తల్లి బాణంలో నీరు తీసుకొని వస్తున్నాయి ఆ బాణం సూట్ పెట్టుకుంటే వాళ్ళు గొప్పవాళ్ళంట అని అంటున్నారు ఎవరు మార్చుకునేవారు ఇదేమన్నాను ఆ తల్లి అంటాన్ని ఆటలు ఆడుకుంటే ఆడుకోక వీడెంత కడుకోవాడు వీడెంత చెడువాడు.
I've got actually quite a few on my laptop. I can also share a few. Because some of them also perform with the wooden figurines. Some of them perform just as like theatrical and with makeup and all dance, but not the scrolls. So they all, like in terms of visuals, they all have a red background. There is no escape to that. Now I've got two answers for that. So the painters, the young painters now tell me, oh, that's because we have a set of colors already defined for all the characters, and the only one that is left is red. And then the other version that made more sense to me as like art historian mindset is that they sit far away, the audience. So this red is very contrasting with the rest of the colors. So I guess there might be a functional reason also. But both are quite valid, I find. So and there will always be these thin registers, and inside the registers, small little narratives. Now, if we go into some of the scrolls, okay, that was a setup. So, for example, this one, you see, they will stop for like 2 hours to just do the worship before they actually continue the narrative. And they set it up also, not all of them, but on some sort of a mobile temple kind of structure. So now, there are little visual details that also, so if you're looking at, for example, the scroll of the Padmasalis, who are the weavers again, there'll always be much more textile design on their scrolls. So they always go a bit with this fancy saris, or always lots of patterns, things that you don't see in the other ones. I find it quite interesting to see that each of them has their own visual identity this way. If you go to the scrolls of the Gaud community, they'll have this story tree everywhere. Even if it's related, I mean, if the scene is about the god or something, but still the fauna flora around will be that of that community. And then this one is, this is for the Puranam is the story of the Dobis. So if you see all those little balls on the last 3 registers, these are the balls of clothes, you know, when they are put together. And so again, it is very particular to this particular narrative. You don't see it in the other ones. So now, one last thing before I go to the changes is that, so if we stick to these scrolls for the performance tradition, they are very fixed. Actually, they don't change much over time. So if we look at those from what the oldest one was 1625, and we look at 19th century, they are fairly the same. And when you speak to the painters, they say themselves like we copy. They call it a copy. It's not exactly copy, but that's how they call it. And they spend time, so the performers would come to the house of the painters with the old one. So they sit down together and they just sketch the whole narrative on the new scroll. And then the performers, if they want some little change, they'll tell, okay, here I want another character, here I want this and that. So it's fairly fixed compared to how it has evolved. And there's also, I think, again, it goes to that legitimization.
Because out here you also
reason.
see like in the one on the fourth from downstairs, you
Uh-huh.
see this kind of characters almost like Nizam-esque.
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
like a Muslim character
Yeah.
in the
With that Jama code, right?
yeah,
Mm.
with the Jamawar and talking to a kind of Dravidian character, on the right, you know, like almost a kind of.
So this is like, it goes, it's particularly of that period also, no? Because there are details of their contemporaneity when it was painted. And I think this fixity is also linked to the function of the scrolls. Since these communities rely very much on this, they are not just narratives that people perform, they are some sort of a certificate. And they are religious objects as well. But they're also certificates of their existence and why they are linked to these other patrons communities. It's a social document, okay? Which I think demands to be continuous in that sense. Now, to give you a bit of the scene is that we have this tradition and then the government comes and realizes that it's not doing very well, performances are not taking place, so we need to revive. What they do is they focus on the material culture aspect. So they focus on the scrolls, on the wooden figurines, on everything that they can hold because they can sell. And in doing that, it's done really great for the painters. They have work. But the performance solution is not doing very well, and I don't. Yeah. Hmm?
It's lost.
There are still one or two. The Parnasalis are quite a wealthy community, so they still commission. Though there is no audience, so they might commission just for themselves. But yeah, it's going to die. I mean, no one is going to be interested in that very soon. And but on the other side, we look at the other side of the picture. They are giving a lot of commissions. So we have this type of commission where museums. This is a Bhopal, a GRMS, yeah. Quite an interesting museum. I don't know if you've been there. So what they did is that they commissioned the story of the Parnasali, but a new one, okay, a new version, but that has never been put in use. Okay, so it's a scroll that looks like the one that should be in performance, but never been in performance. And quite a few museums have done that. So we've got this one.
And this is using acrylic color.
No, we're still in watercolors.
But this is not. Is this like chemically induced watercolor?
Okay, yeah, they are chemical. Yeah.
Because there's a great shade difference.
Yeah. No, the old scrolls were still natural colors. I think the only thing that they still do naturally is the coating of the canvas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But otherwise it's all watercolor. They'll tell you otherwise. They'll tell you we use natural colors. But it's not the case. We know it when we look at it. So they commission scrolls and they also commission, so this is in Dakshina Chitra. Has any of you gone?
Yeah.
So it's quite an interesting place as well. It's,
Yeah.
So what they did is that they commissioned a full set. So this is another narrative, I didn't tell you about this one, the Katam Raju Katha, the story of Katam Raju. So this one, instead of using, this actually is very interesting because it's also across Maharashtra and it's, and the performers speak Marathi, Telugu, and slightly different dialect. But anyway, I can tell you that at another point. And so they commissioned a full set of these 54 wooden figurines and put it in the museum. And this is their goddess. And the Telugu University did also like that. So they commissioned both the figurines and the scroll of the same narrative. So these are all scrolls, apart from that old one, that have never been in use. Neither those wooden dolls. Okay, they're just commissioned for documentation. Now we get into the interesting stuff. So this one, Ramkatha Museum in Ayodhya, as you can imagine, is promising.
You have been there.
Have you?
I don't know.
You have? Oh, it's an interesting place. So this one is, so this is 10 10 panels of the Ramayana. Okay, I'll show you again, but for this museum. So this is a very small provincial museum in UP, in Ayodhya, opened in 1988. And it's an archaeological museum that documents the existence of Ramayana location. Okay, so it has a lot of excavation findings, though their originality is doubtful, I'm sure. I think, and it has a lot of artifacts, a lot of handicrafts, and some statues also, and some sculptures. And they have, remember this? I couldn't take pictures, so it's a stolen picture. They made this photo documentary of all the places where Rama has gone in India. Okay, so the map is on the left, and then you have the actual temples clicked of each of these locations where he has gone. But it's very long. I mean, this is just the start, and then it goes on the whole left side of the corridor. Now, I mean, the funniest part for me that was the story behind the commission of the painting. So I thought, yeah, again the same obsession, artist kind of obsession, like, oh wow, it must be a specific narrative of the Ramayana that they've chosen, let me try to figure out. So I dig into the 10 panels and try to understand what kind of what version of the Ramayana they've chosen and for what reason. And then I realized that okay, it's not extraordinary, I'm not finding details, and I speak to the curator of the museum who tells me, oh no, it's not, we haven't commissioned it, we just bought it already made. What I do is that I go to Delhi regularly. He goes to the Rajiv Gandhi Bhavan where all the handicraft emporium are, where I was talking about, about the textiles. Anyway, so all the handicraft emporium of the country are there in the same place. And we just go to each of them and collect, buy anything that relates to the Ramayana, and we put it in the museum. So this one was in the Libakshi Emporium, the handicraft emporium of Andhra Pradesh at that time. It's still Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, they still have one at the moment. So they bought it from there and then brought it back. So then I looked at it in a different way and thought that there were also Ramayanas from Orissa, on Kalamkari from South India, some from Cambodia, from Thailand. So I thought that instead of having one set version of the Ramayana they are trying to fix and make people understand that this is the one, I think they are trying to have as many Ramayanas as possible to prove that it is there across the country and abroad as well. So the strength that they're trying to bring here is more on the variety as validity rather than one particular aspect. And yeah, I thought that was really interesting. And then if you look at the style of the painting, so we have the dimensions, they're not that big. Okay, so it's like, and when you speak to the painters, first thing they tell you is like, oh, we've done this Ramayana set in miniature style. Okay, because it's small. For them, it's a miniature style. And throughout, whenever we discuss the painting that they submit for awards, they are most of the time miniatures also. So the state actually rewards them for painting in miniature style, though they are painters of long narrative scrolls. And they are really, really proud of it. And it made me understand that miniature is also seen as this sort of a classical fine art still in India, and that the painters, craftsmen also somehow take this into their practice. So basically in this commission, we're already one step far from what it is originally. We have a miniature style Ramayana basically, which is not at all what they used to be. Next one is also very interesting. This is in the Venkateshwara College in Delhi. It's at the entrance, okay, at the entrance of the college. The principal of the college commissioned she actually wanted to decorate, okay, the front, and so she digged a bit. I want something that comes from Telangana. At that time, I think it was still Andhra Pradesh. That connects to the college. You know, the college is run by the TTA, Tirupati Tirumal Devastanam, sorry, the TTD.
We don't know anything about that.
Okay, the trust that runs the Tirupati temple, same trust. So the college, I think it's their construction and maintenance is run by the trust. I think it's not, the administration is not, but the maintenance is. So somehow they have put money also into the commission. Okay.
Do they have a college in Hyderabad as well? There's a fine arts college.
Yeah, they do. And I think they started with the school. Initially they opened a school in Hyderabad, then a college, and then they, So of course he has something connected to Andhra Pradesh and something really rural, deeply rural crafts, so that the students in Delhi who have hardly any knowledge of what's going on will see that. And now so she didn't know herself who to address, so she went to the Lipakshi Emporium again. So what they do, this Handicraft Emporium, there are some sort of a networking platform also for the craftsmen. So they are getting their commissions through them, most of the... And that way, the emporiums, they know very well who is who and who is capable of doing what type of commission also. They keep quite a close eye on the style and on. So she went to the marketing director of Lipakshi and he advised her to contact Madhu, a painter called Madhu. Now, Madhu is a painter who was not born in the Nakashi lineage or community. He was trained by his father, himself trained by one of these, by one of the masters of Cheriyal painting, during one of those workshops in the 80s that the government set up to increase the workers on this position. So he has, he's trained at it, but he's distant from it. He's not part of the cooperative who got the GI tag, and the other painters refuse to admit that he is one of them. Okay, he works from Hyderabad. He never goes to Cheriyal, and so he has developed kind of his own style, which is slightly more refined than the other painters in a way. And he also uses acrylic, so he has changed a bit, few things. So so the Lipakshi thought, okay, this guy is the right one to do this commission, and that's how it came about. So we have this is different. And then some details. Now, I mean, we haven't spent so much time looking at the old ones, but this painter is he has quite different ideas. So he puts different motifs in his painting. So this little staircase on the top right, for example, he has used it as at the same time as a border, at the same time as a staircase when I think it's Vishnu and Lakshmi fighting. So yeah, they're fighting. That's the scene. It's, by the way, sorry I didn't say, it's the Sri Venkateshwara narrative. Okay? Do you know it? I can't go through it. I don't know it as well as the Bansali, and it's quite lengthy also. I could give you the paper.
It's like Tirupati Balaji's life story.
Yeah, something along those lines. He has also tried to put some perspective. So if you look at the middle one, you see this house? Yeah, which is really unusual for them. It's always really flat. And it has a lot of different greenery also. Lots of he's having fun with the greeneries and the trees. So yeah, in this particular one, so again we have this distance between how rooted the commission is supposed to be, but actually how rooted is the person who is going to satisfy this commission. So I thought this was the interesting part of this particular piece. Now I have another interesting one. They're all interesting for me anyway. So this is a Srinaji.
Made by Sri Kiran Nakash.
Yes, Sri Kiran Nakash, who today, the artist I met today, what's his name again?
Parag.
Yeah, Parag. So he just told me actually a few months ago had a workshop at Puranas with Sri Kiran. Yeah. So they work together, and I'll go back to it because I have an image of him. Anyway. So we have this man called Satish Shah in Hyderabad. He's a gem dealer and a follower of Kushtimal, but from the Deccan, okay, like having settled there for generations. He commissioned this painting. So the idea for him was, I had a chat with him. He said, I don't really care how good or bad it will look. I just want, again, this most rooted Telangana, Telugu culture into my own community, basically. So he asked him to do Srinaji in the Cheriyal style, which somehow didn't come out so much as Cheriyal
There's
style.
no Cheriyal style.
Yeah, because the red is not there, first of all, so it's kind of a...
But there's nothing to Cheriyal style.
But then later he told me, like, I was not satisfied, it was not looking... But he's happy with the process of it, so he wants to keep it as his own archive. And I've seen a bit of his collection. He has all these hybrid, basically, kind of pieces that he commissions. Everything related to Srinaji and the Pushtimatra worship rituals and images, but in some different styles, some Kalamkari style, some style of Andhra Pradesh. Yeah, maybe the motifs of the skirts are a little Cheriyal. And the body.
No, the motifs are not very general.
So now, in the way I'm trying to take you is like from the closer to the further, okay, away from what they were originally. We had this project. So this was a project run by Brenda Beck, which is Canadian, and so she documented the Kungu Nadu region in Tamil Nadu, okay, and founded that Ponivala tale. It's called the Anna Brothers Anna story or so. No, I think locally it's known as a different name. She called it Ponivala, but yeah, you might know it in the Tamil folklore with a different name. So that story has disappeared also. It used to be performed in Tamil Nadu, but again disappeared, and she wanted to revive it, but in a digital form. And she sells that. She sells the CDs and then the graphic novels as well. In English, Hindi, and I think she was having a French project also. I'm not sure. She's done it in French.
Is she an animator?
No. She's just she was the researcher and the idea, the concept. So yeah, and so she digs into Tamil Nadu and can't find really a visual storytelling, visual tradition to illustrate it. So she goes to Dakshina Chitra and says like, okay, I have this idea. I want to visualize. To make a visual storytelling of the Ponivala tale. Do you know anyone who could do it? And Dakshina Chitra has a good networking place as well. Says like, yeah, of course, we have the craftsmen and the painters in Telangana, the Cheriyal painter. They can do something with that. So that's how they worked. Then, they met several times. And the painters did small plates with all the figurines, and then she had someone to digitalize them. So actually it's not exactly the same. Lots of things have been changed, she told me. She insisted on that part. Like, we took the initial figures and motifs from them, but we changed it a lot. So I think she wants to keep doing that ownership and authorship of the dough and it, yeah? No? So when I speak to the painters, they're like, oh, it's all our figurines. So of course there's a bit of discrepancy here. And now, just for you to know, I don't have much commentary on that, but she has commissioned also a scroll of that narrative in the old, more traditional style. That would be the length of it. It's actually a good way to look at it. Okay, so here we are. So now what's interesting, I think, with this one is that she wants to revive the folklore of one particular region, but to do so she takes the cultural capital of another region. So again, we have this sort of a hybrid being created, and unless they are documented, then later we take it for granted that this might have been part of what they used to do. And then I've got this one. So this was commissioned by a designer, and this has been. So I dig because I couldn't find. This is in the old. You remember this sari from the first scroll? So I thought, okay, they've just done a copy and then they did something with that. And I digged a bit, and it's an amalgamate of 3-4 different paintings that they put together in one. Okay, and they've done that together with the designer. So the designer actually had seen the scrolls. He did his own research, and then eventually put them together. And I put them actually in the next one. So this comes from the left one, this from the right one. Just put two of them. And this was to become a calendar that they sold on, I think, Jaipur, the website. From, I think, where did they put it? No, I think it's Jaipur.
But why is it called serigraphy?
It was a serigraphy.
Of the way.
Yeah, of that painting that they did. Image.
Serigraphy looks better.
Yeah. They like if you tell them this. Okay, and then now we're going further away and further away. So what they've done. So in 2014, there's an important collector of these paintings that came up with a book. So all the images of the old scrolls were published in that book, and so the painters actually had access to the old scrolls that they might not have with I mean, they paint it and then they give it away, right? Then we have this collector collecting them and putting the image, and the painter can actually look at it again. So they look at their own tradition, but things that they had not painted themselves. And they see that people are so crazy about it, because of course there's a market for the antique one, the old ones, that they start copying the old ones, thinking that, oh, since they are copies of the old, they will work as well. I mean, we can sell them as well as the old are sold. So they come up with this, again, they change some colors. It's not actually very convincing, but just to show you how they, the process of thinking, and how far they can go actually in changing things.
The whole geometry has changed. Also, like,
Yeah.
the eyes have changed entirely of the Ganesha. From circular, it becomes like these nice.
And the format, obviously, this is,
Format
we're
is
talking
entirely
about like a very small piece, 40 by 40. Yeah. But they still, I mean, I've seen them doing, they have the book, and they're doing, so they, I don't know, again, copy, they think they're copying, but then they change on the way.
Color is totally.
Yeah, color though it's a choice. They told me, we are experimenting with this new blue. So, yeah.
Better.
And then we have these sorts of things that we find in the emporium most of the time.
I like the glass one.
So yes, it's quite an amazing one. Especially with the moustache, which has really nothing to do with with the figures. They don't have those thick moustache also. They have moustache, but not that prominent in the paintings. So these are little masked keychain. The three top actually more come from the wooden figurine I showed you at some point. It's more taken from that. And they use coconut now. Before they used wood, but they're running out of wood. There's material shortage in the region, so they have changed and use coconut. And these are the typical small one that you find in the. You said something?
Yeah.
So this is a typical small one that you'll find on the market.
And sari is very important.
Yeah, and the sari. That's usually some women come and commission, like they actually gave him the piece and said, we want this on the pallu. So this, and it's not again very convincing. The sari was already existing, already written away, and then they added it to it. But still, it's to show how far they go in their work. And last time I went, they were making plates, so ceramic plates to decorate houses with these old ones, the bloom, terrific bloom. Yeah, and then some 3D sculptural objects also that I don't know. Actually, I'll ask this time because I don't know exactly what it was. So this is what we have now. That's it. I think conclusion. Yeah, so just I put how far we've gone, so that you can know what it is. So just for the small anecdote, when I started, I thought, okay, this is a disappearing tradition. I need to document it. You know that preservationist attitude, like, whoa, please do it, run. And that's because that's the narrative that is given to you by the handicraft market and by the painters themselves. When you visit them for the first time, that's what they'll tell you. When you go to the emporiums, that's what they'll tell you. Every single brochure you find, that's what they'll tell you as well. It's a disappearing tradition, etc., etc. And then I started digging and said, no, this is not disappearing at all, it's transforming. Okay, so some aspects are disappearing. Performance is no longer there, or no longer there. But they are renewing it, right? They constantly change with other type of commission, other material. And I think with this particular one, all we can really, what so far can attach them to Cheriyal painting tradition would be the red color, that thick black line. And I think in the end, after I finished PhD, I reached the conclusion that it may just be the practitioners themselves, so the painters attach us still to this Cheriyal tradition. But I think that's fairly on what remains really. It could be anything and everything. And I guess that's all, right?
How did you find out about these paintings?
In a book, one article. So I wanted to work on a performance and visual together. So initially the project was totally different than this. I wanted to compare the visual and the performance. But then I got the language training of Telugu, and after 3 months I said, like, this is not happening. I'm never going to get there. So I gave up and I changed it. But yeah, in a book, there was one article.
What kind of narration happens with the performer? Like, how do they actually perform?
Like the theatrical aspect of it?
Yeah,
Or
the theatrical aspect of it.
Well, there'll be some. We've seen on that video some music and some. Is it what you're asking, right?
No, in the sense
sorry.
that, like for example, Patachitra, you don't have the performer who is foregrounded.
Yes.
Here you have the performer who is actually guiding you into the
Yes.
painting,
Yeah.
guiding you into the work.
Mm.
So he becomes like a wire media.
Yeah.
Between the audience and the painting.
I think that Patachitras as well, no? I mean, they're on the side and they're smaller scale. So
Correct.
It's
It's just that they're little.
But it's very the same principle really. It's just that they're standing with a big scroll at the back and they point with a stick.
Mm.
But the Patachitras, they're sitting there with just having it and unfolding, but they point with the fingers. I've seen them before. They point with the fingers also. There's one.
And do they elaborate the narration? Like, do they elaborate every scroll, every part of the scroll?
No. Again, that's what I was trying to explain. Is that they don't. It's just some scenes. The most important will be there, but then they put their own narrative into it. Just some elements of contemporary village life as well. So they have anecdotes. It's a long process. When they come to perform this, first they go to the patrons, and the patrons say, "Okay, we want a performance." So it will take place only after 3 months. In those 3 months, they go back, and then they come and settle in the village for like 1 week before the performance. And because they are interdependent castes, they stay together. So the performers will stay with the patrons. So they gather small anecdotes at that time also, and they build up their narrative. They work it out basically. There's some work. Every performance will be different. So any questions? I'm going to meet them actually this weekend to see.
Was this the only one that was the oldest, or you found some?
Only one.
Only one.
Only one. Yeah. I don't think they survive very well. Like preservation-wise, it's a bit of an issue. Yeah. So all the other ones, you have this one from 1625. After that, it goes all to late 18th century. And actually, I did dating as well. I have worked on that. It's also not accurate. I don't think they are always from the. They might be a bit later. And it's quite a. I mean, the painters actually call me regularly. Do you know someone who wants to buy them? There are still some to buy. Yeah, they're quite pricey now. They know also. So I think. But they're amazing to see. If you can imagine, they opened a few of them on the roofs, and we hang them. Like it's incredible. They're really long. The Calico Museum in Ahmedabad has one which is fully open. And they have this fancy display. Have you been to the museum?
No.
You should. It's an amazing museum.
Ahmedabad is a bit dangerous.
Yeah.
Textile museum.
Okay. No, but yeah, if you're passing by, actually the Calico Museum is a story in itself. So to go and visit it, just for the anecdote, you have to book an appointment, but for the tour. Like you can't go and roam around in the museum on your own. It's not allowed. So they have one tour in the morning, one tour in the afternoon, and they are thematic tours. The one in the morning is a religion, very Krishna-oriented. I don't know the title anymore, but something like that. And it's a performance really. So you are there. I was there with another person. We had a guide, and then we have I think one lady, one man, guards that open the doors, switch on the lights of each room. Then the guide starts to do the explanations, and guide us. Like we can't go on the side too much. We can't look at it from too close. And then they switch off the light behind us, close the door. We go to the next room, etc. It's very, very strange. Just go for the out of curiosity if you're passing by. Yeah. No, but we need to know that what's going on. It's quite weird. So they have one full on display also.
How old is that one, the Calico Museum scroll?
I'm not sure. I would say 18th or 19th century, but I don't believe they are dating also. I don't think anyone has really worked the dating of these scrolls. So they are all from 18th, 19th century, but it's very vague, no? 1919.
Any more questions?
That's all there is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.